Welcome to my virtual 30-minute presentation for the 2024 Dabrowski Congress. I'm Dr. Jedynak. I'd like to acknowledge that this presentation was created on the traditional lands of the Ghana people, and I pay my deepest respects to elders past, present, and emerging. And so it's with great excitement that I present to you Fame and Fragility, a creative exploration of positive disintegration and the lived experience. This presentation is in 5 acts. The first 4 acts draw directly on my autoethnography. Act 5 reflects on fame, the aftermath of fame, and positive disintegration. Please enjoy this deep dive into the psychic milieu of a 19-year-old whose life is about to radically change. Act 1. Lights dim. Anticipation saturates the air of the theatre like sea spray. Tension climbs as thousands of eyes turn towards the dazzling stage. TV cameras locate the perspiring compere. Drum rolls accompany the delivery of an envelope. Meaty fingers break the wax seal, a smudge of red on white. Teeth gleam. Miss Australia 1983 is. When my name is announced, my heart stops. The audience stands. Music blares. I am hugged and kissed. Of their own volition, my feet lose contact with the floor as a tsunami of applause crashes over the stage. Snared in the spotlights, I am aflame like a phoenix rising. I feel electrified, terrified, magnified. I'm ushered to a throne where a sash embossed in gold is draped across my torso. A blue satin cape, fire blanket thick, is fastened at the neck. A gold scepter is given to me to hold. A large pearl-encrusted crown is placed upon my head. I start to melt as if I've flown too close to the sun. I try to breathe, smile, stop the hurricane of thoughts battering my mind. One thought shrieks the loudest. The judges have made a terrible mistake. TV cameras zoom in. I'm under a microscope as countless viewers across the land wonder, is she beautiful? Is she perfect? Who is she? It feels as if my insides have become my outsides. Black oily doubt clogs my throat as the audience returns to their seats. I need smelling salts, water, crisis counselling. I want to press the pause button and have a long, hard think about the situation. The throne wobbles beneath me. For all its apparent sturdiness, it is made of cardboard and plywood, a stage prop painted metallic gold and padded with glittery spandex. I'm not sitting on a real throne. None of it feels real. Someone takes my arm. A stander managed to take some steps. The organising principles of my body no longer function. I squint at the sea of faces, white specks bobbing in dark waters. I grip the scepter like a club as the microphone looms large. My throat is dry, pulse steady, knees weak. Under the penetrating spotlights, I am x-rayed by the TV cameras, scrutinised by thousands of strangers who press forward, press into, press through me. I am visible, yet so invisible at the same time. I glance at the 6 beautiful finalists standing behind me, at the perspiring compere licking his lips, at the previous Miss Australia whose crown I am now wearing, at the dignitaries looking important in their black suits and bow ties, and at the TV cameras recording me. My life of flying under the radar is over, and my stomach flips and flops. I straighten my shoulders and open my mouth. Sound spilled from my lips into the microphone. My voice is loud and unfamiliar to my ears. I babble and stammer and pause mid-sentence. The silence is profound. Then the audience applauds, and coherent words spring to mind too late. I should have said this or that, or anything other than the stupid things I said or thought I said. What did I actually say? Heat floods my face. I want to scrub out every word I have uttered, rewind and start again, but the rehearsals are over. Surprise has scrambled my nervous system, and I have made the worst speech in history. I expect the audience to point their fingers and yell, fraud, liar, imposter, but the accusations do not come. When the media interviews are over, there is a party next. I imagine that a real Miss Australia loves parties, so I must love them too. I imagine that a real Miss Australia loves meeting people, so I must love that too. I imagine that a real Miss Australia emanates an endless supply of joy and delight, so I must emanate that too. I keep my shoulders square, my smile broad, my words polite. As the evening progresses, my voice drops an octave from exhaustion. My cheek muscles complain. My lips are parched. I cannot keep track of words. I hold a glass of champagne for the photographers and the bubbles go flat as the liquid warms in my hand. Everyone wants to meet me. They see me coming and turn to greet me with their arms outstretched. They feel like syrupy water sloshing against me. My body must have morphed into a boat. I know that these people would not have cared one jot about me before I became Miss Australia. You must be so happy, people croon and cluck. I bet your parents are proud. You'll make a wonderful Miss Australia. I smile and thank and feel amazed, dazed, crazed. I am a stranger in a world full of people who seem to belong in it. I'm walking on thin ice. My mouth is full of cotton wool. My jaw clenches. My hands seek the comfort of each other in a grip that whitens my knuckles. I'm told that it's 1 a.m. and I'm free to go. Go where, I ask. To my hotel room, someone tells me. Tomorrow there will be a 7 a.m. breakfast with 300 guests. I can expect a 5 a.m. wake-up call. I nod and try to smile, but my face is numb and putty-like. I feel as if I'm taking on water and leaking water at the same time, but not at the same rate. I've been pushed into the deep end of a pool, and now I must learn how to swim. Act 2. I had not paraded in bikinis to win Miss Australia, nor competed overseas in an international beauty contest. I was, like other Miss Australias who had gone before me, simply doing my job representing my country, representing the Miss Australia quest, representing the plethora of sponsors who had made it all possible, representing the people who donated to the cause, representing the physically challenged children and adults with cerebral palsy who were recipients of those donations. I spent the next 12 months of my life fully devoted to those responsibilities, following an intense itinerary that took me on an extensive tour of Australia and overseas 4 times. However, as soon as I walked off the stage with a crown on my head, the demonstrations started. In Melbourne, feminists waved banners. In Perth, disabled people barricaded Parliament. In Sydney, microphones were thrust under my nose and journalists asked, "What do you think about the women's libers calling beauty parades 2 steps removed from pornography?" Feminists are saying the Miss Australia contest is a meat market. What do you think? Are disabled people correct when they declare that an able-bodied woman shouldn't represent them? I did not know what to say. I was caught in the middle of a media debacle, a fundraising circus, a feminist backlash, a disabled identity crisis that someone more beautiful, more intelligent, more competent could have mitigated, or at least mediated. My feet sank into sand. My heart sank into my chest. My soul sank somewhere inaccessible. Exhaustion sank into my bones. I sank into an indescribable loss. What was that loss? What was wrong with me? What did it all mean? I told myself to remember the children, remember the money raised for them, remember not to take it personally, but it felt personal. It felt like an attack. I critically examined the months that had passed as Miss Australia. My performance had to improve. I had to work harder. Act 3. During the year as Miss Australia, my skin became cardboard. It could be cut away from my skeleton and held out in front of me. There were handles to hold and circles where my eyes fit. This fragile facade was my celebrity self. The space between my celebrity self and what was left of my body provided some sort of safety buffer from sensory overwhelm, stopping the hyperkinetic, heady life of fame perpetually puffing me up and shrinking me down. It stopped the nagging questions. What was I doing here? Who was I? What did it all mean? My skin became cardboard partly because the acclamation was hard to take in. Praise was impossible to absorb, internalize, integrate into my sense of self. It remained something that came from the outside, like having a hit of heroin. It made me feel great, but then it wore off and I felt worse than before. I put myself on automatic pilot. This was easier, more sustainable. I could function in the whirlwind that was my daily life. I watched from a distance the object I had become to see if anyone noticed that no one was behind the wheel. Was I being false or being true? Was I adapting or maladapting? Or was the cardboard one giant mask? Or was it something else, like an alter ego? As a mask, I could discard it at a moment's notice like a stage prop or use it for camouflage. Perhaps it stopped an over-identification with the fabrications of fame. Perhaps it stopped what was false from corrupting my truth. Perhaps it kept me sane. Perhaps it allowed me to be somebody who could perform, get it right, get somewhere, make something happen. I knew how to perform. I had done it all my life to feel loved, safe, seen. I had made it through that channeled gateway of measurable performance to make others happy. I pretended to love meeting people at any time of the day or night. I pretended to be happy following the itinerary, following the rules, adhering to the schedule. I pretended to enjoy giving speeches at every event. I pretended to drink cups of tea, glasses of wine, flutes full of bubbles. I pretended to eat the food placed in front of me. I pretended to enjoy the endless travel, the country towns that blurred into sameness day after day. I pretended that I did not ache to get home every hour of the day, to get back to a life that was full of books, music, and beloved pets. I pretended to like my chaperones, although they were strangers. I pretended that fame was a blast because that was what everyone expected it to be. I pretended to be happy because I was so lucky to be famous. I pretended that I was someone who needed no time at all because it had to look effortless. I pretended I needed nothing. I pretended to be Miss Australia, even though I had no idea who Miss Australia was and whether she was really a person at all. Was she a ghost haunting herself, or an elaborate mirage of smoke and mirrors? I wondered if I was the only one pretending and whether others were pretending too. Were we all frauds and liars, magicians and tricksters, Zen masters in thin disguise? Perhaps pretending was civility's glue, just as good manners were the grease. I wondered if both were important to responsibly play a part within society, to cultivate order and regularity. Perhaps pretending was a constructive way to survive and navigate society without alienating others. I pretended because pretending felt like a choice. It felt like play, acting, and escape when there was no escape. I even pretended not to pretend, which could have been the greatest pretense of all. Act 4. During my year as Miss Australia, few glitches marred my gold star performance, while simultaneously I felt full of glitches, anxieties, complexities, dissonances that made fitting in a constant struggle. I felt out of kilter, out of accord. Signs of disintegration, loss of control, falling apart, mess and imperfection had to be kept hidden. Self-control was vital to maintain the fairy tale fiction of fame. Behind closed doors, I secretly asked myself what was better about this life of 18-hour schedule, 6 hours a week, while living out of a suitcase? What was so good about meeting and greeting hundreds of people every day, standing for foot-numbing hours, talking the trivia talk that turned the mind into Jarlsberg cheese, answering the same questions over and over for people who did not listen for the same reply but expected it anyway? People who wanted to dance their pot-bellied boarding dance with me to say, "You're the horniest woman around, love." People who wanted me to wear their designer clothes so that they could tell me, "Take those clothes off and your neighbour would nod." People who wanted to sit in my hotel room to watch me dress. People who wanted my autograph in the bathroom, on the run to catch a flight, on the actual flight. Photographers who wanted my head tilted this way or that, chin up, no chin down, toothy smile, no seductive smile, no forget the smile, no smile, goddammit. Wherever I looked, cameras were aimed, words exchanged, hands reaching, touching, squeezing, pulling. Instructions landed in my lap and clouds moved under my feet. The same clouds? I ironed clothes without an ironing board. My underwear dried over bathroom taps in hotel rooms, a tight budget for dry cleaning and an even tighter budget for long-distance phone calls. Every moment scrutinised, every word recorded, every face talked about. Speeches to memorise, protocols to remember, thank you letters to write at midnight. Napping in the car with my sunglasses crooked while my chaperone drove, puffing on a ciggy and flicking ash out the window. My name stuck to the roof of the car. Miss Australia was here. I felt guilty, flawed, an imposter for not revelling in fame. Fame exhausted me, felt corrosive. I secretly yearned for something deep, meaningful, emergent. I yearned for the freedom to be exactly as I was. I yearned for silence and stillness and nature. What was wrong with me? I realised that it was not only me who was shaping Miss Australia as much as the people behind the scenes and the people I met. Their expectations, their needs, their perceptions and perspectives held the key to the role I played. The media shaped me too. The reporters described the colour of my eyes: green, blue, sea green, grey, olive. They photographed me in ways that appealed to their readership. They interviewed me but printed little of what I said. They too were giving me the lines that bridged the gap between who I was and who the public wanted me to be, so that newspapers and magazines were sold. But what was real? Did it even matter? Was the illusion far more important, far more desirable, far more saleable? I did not want to disappoint a soul. I wanted everyone to feel a little bit better for having met me, so I moved the complexities of physical and social environments like a performing circus clown. But most of all, I dutifully served cerebral palsy children and adults at the highest level. I visited them everywhere I travelled. I talked about their special needs in every speech I made. Because they could not shake hands, I shook countless hands. Because they were invisible to the media, I attended the photo shoots and fronted up to radio stations for interviews and TV stations for chats with talk show hosts. To promote their cause, I made department store appearances with other celebrities, cut ribbons at bank openings, helped with product launchings, attended fundraising luncheons, afternoon teas, civic receptions, cocktail parties and dinners. To raise money, I went down coal mines in far north Queensland and shot to the top of skyscrapers in New York. To promote the sponsors who supported the quest, I toured America, the South Pacific and the UK twice. I performed on the piano for dignitaries and practiced the flute on the balconies of hotel rooms in my limited spare time. I flew on countless airplanes, felt nauseated by the food and lived in a fog of jet lag. The children gave me toys and drawings and letters and so many bouquets of flowers and silver spoons and other souvenirs that were so sweet and touching. By the end of my year as Miss Australia, I had made over 2,500 public appearances, most of them fundraising events. I had given approximately 300 media interviews for TV, radio, newspapers and magazines. I had delivered innumerable speeches and written a truckload of thank you letters. I was considered one of the most photographed women in Australia. I had been an ambassador for Australia, an advocate for children and adults with cerebral palsy, and represented major sponsors of the Miss Australia Quest such as ANZ Bank, Qantas and Fabergé. By the age of 19, I was a woman of the world. Act 5. To end this presentation, I will reflect further on fame, fragility and positive disintegration, although this is not intended in any way, shape or form to be authoritative. This is a work in progress. Fame can be deeply problematic, a dangerous way to live. The act of setting oneself above the rest of humanity can be deeply misanthropic. Trying to blot out the unextraordinary in oneself can be deeply wounding. Celebrities are almost 4 times more likely to kill themselves than the average American. The pursuit of fame is basically a tragic pursuit. It does not reward someone the way they think it will. It makes life much more punishing than they think it will. It makes them open to huge disappointments, huge letdowns, and a sense ultimately of abandonment when fame dissipates. Fame inevitably fades. The problem is, once someone has been in the spotlight, there is nothing else like it. Countless self-help books urge the readership to become extraordinary, to live an unconventional life, without ever acknowledging that to dedicate oneself to being as different as possible is still to be dictated to by other people's values. Anti-conformity is still a form of conformity. Major celebrities are often the most profoundly conformist, expressing the conventional values of our culture in their purest form. It is only in anonymity that celebrities have an opportunity to be their authentic selves. Under spectacular conditions, the famous are simply those singled out, whether by fate or contingency, to dramatize the mass aspiration for an authentic existence denied by those self-same conditions. After the chaos and crisis of fame, after recovering from burnout, after struggling to find my feet and a way forward with my ordinary life, I felt driven to reconnect with who I really wanted to be, what my values were, and how I could live in alignment with them. Fame was the catalyst to find out what success meant to me, to define it and embody it. Of course, this was easier said than done. I married, founded a private music school and taught children and adults the piano, flute and guitar. The music school became so popular that I had to employ 3 teachers to manage the long waiting list. On the brink of another burnout, I haunted the self-help shelves in bookstores and fell down numerous rabbit holes, searching for answers to a plethora of pressing questions. I became a seminar junkie and sought the spiritual high which mimicked the adrenaline rush of fame. I was a dreamer, full of ideas about how the world should be, and struggled with the pain and suffering of the here and now. I managed to keep my feet on the ground long enough to go on a long, intense, slow and painful investigation. I mapped my inner environment. I strove for complete autonomy as a self-examined, self-chosen and self-aware person. Despite grappling with the restlessness, impatience, periods of anxiety, boredom and a thirst for meaning, I was determined to uncover what was real, innate, whole, true. I sifted through the layers of multidimensionality, reading, writing, researching, workshopping, questing for healing and understanding. Life held several curveballs my way. I rose from the ashes several times. I found my feet again and trudged through several lifetimes. I completed several university degrees. I travelled for several years. Feelings of inferiority gradually faded. I stopped putting people on pedestals. I learned how to say no. I learned to accept the good with the bad, to accept life in its entirety. Decades later, I discovered that there was nothing wrong with me. I realised that my neurotic habits were not obstacles or problems to eliminate. I did not have to undo and try to kill off what made me different. In fact, my sensitivity, intensity and passion for learning provided the very fuel I needed to grow. If I did not resist, I discovered that pain and discomfort could connect me to the deeper roots of my existence, a process of disconnecting from the narrow, repetitive cycles of my private self. This led to a gradual dropping away of tensions, constrictions, dilemmas, frustrations and conflicts that had been lodged in my mind, heart and body. I felt connected to my deeper self, inner peace and a greater love of life. I encountered many truths using autopsychotherapy. I also realized that my feelings were power and energy and currency. I was particularly curious about what turned on all my lights and deepened my engagement with creativity, music, visual art, dance, connecting with nature, but most of all writing and autoethnography. Creativity connected me to flow states, which were meditative and restorative. Flow states fostered an inner stability and equanimity and strengthened my intuition. I realized that success did not look like success as it was defined earlier in my life. Neither did failure. Success was about creating a life that was a unique work of art, a life that reflected my values, purpose and my many passions, a life that was rich with meaning. To pull back or retreat from this quest because of fear would mean failure. I marched the beat of my own drum, listened to my inner voice and whatever welled up from within. I learned to trust myself, have greater faith in life, and claimed my birthright as a creator. This was the highest right for myself. Undertaking decades of self-development also supported the process. I had many teachers and a mentor who entered my life at a pivotal time. My creativity extended beyond music, art, poetry, prose and teaching. In partnership with my husband, we built healthcare businesses and created dynamic teams with value-driven people who connected with the bigger picture of changing lives for the better. We developed workshops and trainings both online and offline. We grew a global education and business coaching service that continues to this day. I wonder if I would have had such an expansive life if fame had not broadened my horizons. On some level, it gave me the confidence to step into an entrepreneurial space and revel in it for the most part. This challenging life path required an ability to hold the tension as I thought of it, or to put it another way, build a tolerance for high tension, high risk, uncertainty, and no guarantees. The obstacles became the way. Setbacks were to be expected. Periods of loneliness lessened as our network expanded around the world. My husband and I took comfort in the fact that we always had each other as we rode the roller coaster. I saw that a creative life was an intersubjective, interdependent, dialectical, relational activity. Like jazz musicians, we are listening, improvising, riffing off one another, playing together, spontaneously creating an unpredictable musical whole that is never the same way twice. It is a process that continues to explore and evolve and unfold itself. Positive disintegration didn't take me to some mountaintop. It woke me up to what is right here, right now, an experience of life as it is, a great appreciation of small everyday delights, a breaking through of the illusion of separateness, an awakening to the sacredness imbued in all things. It became possible to see through the false, not try to grasp the truth, enjoy what is, not land anywhere, not fixate on any single view, live without any final answers, open my heart again and again, wake up again and again, find the extraordinary in the ordinary, the perfection in the imperfection, enjoy the process more than the product, and see through the stories and beliefs that create suffering and confusion or provide false comfort. With luck on my side, I learned to trust my own direct insights and sensibilities, my own unique life, and this ever-changing, infinitely varied, unmediated, present experiencing, right here now, just as it is, which is all we really ever have. Although there is so much to say, I'll conclude with this. I don't think positive disintegration is about ultimately becoming a flawless saint who is always happy, serene, and transcendent. I don't think there is any permanent enlightenment, no endpoint, no finish line, no formula, no method. There are no answers, no beliefs or dogma. There's this state of not knowing, simply being. There's first-hand exploration and direct discovery. Free of the prison of our internal limitations, it's possible to be open, compassionate, connected, curious, creative, explorative, intuitive, unique, and universal. To no longer be fragmented, isolated, separated. To be awake to the heartbreaking beauty and brokenness of life. To freely move with the weft and weave of this organic, orgasmic, oracular existence. The Spastic Centres of Australia received more than $90 million in funds by the time the Miss Australia quest ended in the year 2000. Deepest thanks to Dr. Chris Wells, Emma Nicholson, and all involved in the Dabrowski Congress 2024. Thanks to Ted Jedynak for his technical support and loving support. And a big thank you to you for being here.